among the bustling streets of Boston lived a man named Daniel. He had a simple yet happy life alongside his beloved wife, Sarah, and their adorable daughter, Emily. Together, they formed a united family filled with love. However, fate had a cruel trial in store for them. On a cold autumn night, while a storm raged outside, a terrible fire broke out in the family's old house in the historic neighborhood of Beacon Hill. The flames voraciously consumed the wooden structure, casting a thick, dark curtain of smoke over the night sky. Daniel was working a late shift and he received the terrible news. His heart raced with anguish as he ran through the wet streets towards the scene of the disaster. Sirens echoed through the city as firefighters bravely battled to contain the voracious fire, but their efforts seemed in vain against the fury of the flames. When Daniel arrived at the scene, his house was engulfed in a hellish inferno. The heat was so intense that he could barely approach, but his mind could only think of his beloved wife and daughter trapped inside that infernal furnace. He desperately shouted their names, pleading for them to be spared from this devastating tragedy. But his words were drowned out by the crackling of the flames and the deafening noise of the firefighters' efforts. Time seemed to drag on as Daniel watched helplessly as his house was consumed by the voracious fire. Despair enveloped him like a dark cloak, smothering any spark of hope that still remained in his heart. Finally, after endless hours of agony, the flames began to subside. What was left of Daniel's house was just a pile of charred debris, a grim testament to the tragedy that had occurred there. With a heavy heart and tears streaming down his face, Daniel searched through the debris for any sign of his family. But his worst fears were confirmed when firefighters found the lifeless bodies of Sarah and Emily among the rubble. The pain of loss was overwhelming. Daniel felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under his feet, his whole world crumbling before his eyes. He knelt on the ground, his heart shattered and his soul torn apart by grief, unsure of how he could go on living after losing the two people he loved most in this world. In the dark days that followed, Daniel wandered the streets of Boston like a ghost, his heart empty of hope. Until one day, while exploring the charred ruins of his old house, he found something that would change his life forever, a Bible, miraculously intact amidst the fire. Daniel hesitated for a moment, looking at the sacred book in disbelief. But something inside him urged him to pick it up, to open its pages and start reading. His trembling hands found the book of Daniel, chapter 3, verses 17 to 18, where it read, "If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." As the sacred words touched his wounded soul, Daniel felt a spark of hope ignite within him, a bright light in the midst of the darkness. In the silence of the night, Daniel delved into the stories and teachings of the Bible. He found comfort in the promises of faith, forgiveness, and renewal. Each word brought a little peace to his shattered heart and a glimpse of hope for his future. With his heart still heavy with grief and his mind shrouded in darkness, Daniel faced each day as if he were carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Each moment was a battle against the overwhelming sadness that threatened to consume him. But even in the deepest darkness, a glimmer of hope began to shine faintly on the distant horizon. Daniel found comfort in the words of the Bible he had found among the ruins of his old house. He immersed himself in the sacred pages, seeking solace in the promises of faith, forgiveness, and renewal. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Daniel began to feel a change within himself. The pain was still there, a wound that would never fully heal, but he began to find small moments of peace and solace in the words of the Bible and the loving memories he shared with his wife and daughter. Over time, Daniel found the strength to rebuild himself, not just physically but spiritually. He felt the comforting presence of God by his side, guiding and strengthening him on his journey of healing. Amidst tears and suffering, he discovered that he was not alone, that God was there, holding his hand and helping him find the way to light. As his faith grew stronger, Daniel began to share his story of overcoming and faith with others, inspiring those facing their own trials. He witnessed miracles in his own life, moments of peace and comfort that could only come from God. As the months passed, Daniel found a new reason to live, to honor the memory of his wife and daughter by living a life of love, service, and faith. He built a new house, a symbol of rebirth and renewal, and found solace and strength in the words of the Bible, remembering that even in the darkest hours, the light of hope never fades when one has faith in God.